My favorite closing words that one of my mentors, Reverend Terry Sweetser, used to use every week in church back years ago when I was a director of religious education went like this. Each of us is an artist whose task it is to create our lives. And then they'd go on from there. And I remember the first time I heard those words, each of us is an artist, and I thought about myself as an artist. It stopped me. It absolutely stopped me because I had never considered that I was an artist. But in fact, each of us is an artist creating our lives. Our lives are a work of art. They're a work of creativity. No matter how much we try to color within the lines or how boldly we take off outside the lines, we are creating our lives. And that's one thing that I really love about this faith, Unitarian Universalism. We don't depend on someone else to tell us what it is to live correctly, what it is to live a good life, what it is that we should be creating. Each of us determines from our own relationships, from our own relationship with the holy, what we're called to do on this planet and how we're called to do it and what kind of metaphor and what kind of language, who we're called to be. We call that sometimes the priesthood of all believers or the prophethood of all believers, rather than that there's an authority who tells you what your life should be like. You know, that whole thing of the authority telling us what our life should be like may seem medieval, may seem like it comes from a time when the church was telling the peasants just to, go work and be quiet and not to make any waves. But if you think about it, that's still going on. I don't know about you, but I was really taken aback recently with the whole Supreme Court discussions around marriage equality. And one of the main things that they were obsessed with is that what marriage is for is procreation. It's to create a child. That's it. That's what it's for. That's what you're supposed to do. And of course, many people were saying, not only is this an issue for gay and lesbian couples, but also a lot of heterosexual couples don't want to create children. That's not what they're on the planet to create. So are you saying that they shouldn't get married? And so there were some interesting conversations that went on. Now, I think any of us would agree that there is something really beautiful and miraculous about a male and a female who love each other, mixing up their genes and creating this new being who reflects both of them. You know, that for those of us who love children from such unions, there's something really fun about biologically seeing both parents come through that. But for those of us who have adopted children or chosen not to have children at all or had children in other ways with, alternative insemination or all kinds of other alternatives, it's not like those creations are any less precious or beautiful. So this idea that there's one way ordained by God that creation should take place and everything else is somehow not really creation goes directly against our belief that there are so many ways to live and create a beautiful, meaningful life. So we're all creating our lives. I'm creating this video right now for you. Joa, who you can't see, is filming me, and he's creating what he creates with the film, and the musicians will be part of this. These are works of creativity. But each of you who attends is also creating something in the conversations. In fact, no matter what we do, there will be people who come tonight, and the main thing they'll remember is the interaction that they had on the side when someone was kind to them, when someone reached out to them. When we're little, when we're kids, we're just little engines of creativity. I used to teach preschool, and there wasn't a kid in the preschool who would have said to me, I don't know how to paint. I don't know how to sing. They didn't care if they could sing on key or paint in the lines. They just loved to mess around and do stuff. And somehow that gets taken away from us. We're told unless we can do it this way, we really aren't creative. We're really not an artist. And there's so many judgments about bad art, bad poetry. The world has too many bad poets. That kind of judging just kills the creativity in all of us. Years ago, when my 16-year-old was 3, I went to the preschool where she was going to enroll. And so at that school, and the reason we picked it is they let the kids do free play pretty much all day, for several hours. They just played. And, you know, having time to just play, to me, that was what I wanted my kid to do at that age. So this parent raised her hand. She said, well, what if the kids can't think of anything to play? Do you help them think of something? And I laughed. I thought that was the funniest question in the world, because I'd never seen, my kid wouldn't run out of things to play, you know, forever. And the kids that I knew. And the teacher said very solemnly, and this was in Washington, D.C., and it was a lot of very privileged kids we're talking about. This was a pricey preschool. This should have been college, in my opinion, these prices. But anyway, the teacher said very seriously, well, I've been teaching for 30 years and I am seeing something new. I'm seeing kids who can't figure out what to play. She said, I link it to a combination of not enough unstructured time. In other words, they never have to think of things to do or play. And too much input, too much television, too much media, too much stuff coming at them where they're not actually actively engaging. This made me so sad, because I think creativity and imagination is a precious resource as valuable as the rainforest. I mean, a 3-year-old's creativity, how big is that? How amazing is that? And to hear these, what we would call very privileged kids who at age 3 couldn't imagine, couldn't decide how to create anymore, it made me incredibly sad. So I think that, you know, we tend to think of creativity looking a certain way, but I think really what it is taking the time and the energy and the focus to really line up where our joy and our passion comes through, and doing that. Some people are incredibly creative parents, incredibly creative. Others more color within the lines as parents. Some people are incredibly creative gardeners. You could say that about my garden. It is not colored within the lines, even if my neighbors would like it to be. Some people create a very tidy, orderly garden that's no less beautiful, that's actually no less creative. It's just more orderly. Some people create checkbooks that balance. That's something I'm in awe of. If I ever did that, I'd be so impressed with myself creatively having done that. Recently, I was thinking about moving, and I fell in love with this loft that was in a building where you needed to be an artist to live there. So at first I thought, well, I'm not an artist, so too bad, it's a beautiful loft. But then the people in the building said, we define artists very broadly, so think about it. And I did think about it, and I started to think about these videos and all the things I write and all the things that I do, and I thought, well, I am a writer, and I do make videos, and they do reach out to all kinds of people, and I guess I kind of am an artist. So at first I felt like kind of a fraud, you know, creating this, turning my ministerial packet into an artist's portfolio. But the more I looked at it, the more I thought, it's just how you think about it. My spiritual teacher said to me, you know, you've been looking at art through the eyes of a minister. How about if you looked at ministry through the eyes of an artist? So I offer that question to you as we think about creativity. If you look at art through the eyes of a parent, how about if you looked at parenting through the eyes of an artist? If you look at your work, doing IT work through the eyes, you know, of an IT person, you look at art. How about being an artist looking at IT work as art? When you do that, it really opens up the world in a wonderful way that I commend to you, just to think of yourself as an artist and see what that act of creation, that story that you tell, see where that takes you and what that creates. Try it for a week. Just wake up and say, today I'm an artist and I'm going to create. I'm going to be co-creating the world, and see what kind of energy comes through you with that assertion. Next week, I'll want to hear all about it. Each of us is an artist whose task it is to create our lives. What will you do with yours this week?